there, and welcome to the latest edition of United in Strength. Mike here. Now, as you can see, this is somewhat of a product review, and this will probably be my first of a few. I'll be talking about some products that I've worked with in the past or currently use now, lifting equipment, maybe even some supplements. And I get to start off with an all-time classic. What you're looking at here is the legendary Converse Chuck Taylor All-Stars. If it doesn't matter if you're watching this, it makes no difference how old you are. If you were a kid, you probably saw these vintage-looking shoes at your local Foot Locker or whatever shoe store you choose to go to. You looked at them, and then, like everybody else in the world and their mother, you instead bought the way cooler and more expensive looking Nike sneaker. I know I'm totally guilty of this. Heck, I thought that these were like some of the lamest shoes you ever bought. And I'm a guy that used to wear Airwalks and even Vans. Almost a similar format, if you will, or appearance. But what I did not know at the ripe old age of maybe 8, 9, 10 years old was that these shoes that seemed to be lame and seemed to be bland and boring were actually meant for basketball. That's correct. In 1901, Converse created the All-Star shoe, which was a shoe designed for basketball, and they're one of the first companies, the other one being Spalding, to create a sports-specific shoe. In 1917, at the age of 16, Chuck Taylor started wearing these for his basketball games at his high school in Indiana. In 1922 or 23, he got a job working for Converse. He must have loved the shoe that much. And the Converse shoes back then were clearly just low top. These are high tops, okay? So everything, most of what you see here is what the shoe looked like then, only the length was not what you see it to be. It was more low cut, no ankle support, and that was the platform that Chuck used to suggest to the brass in Converse that perhaps there should be a patch added for ankle support and more flexibility, as you see here. In 1932, not even a decade later, Converse decided to add the word Chuck Taylor to the patch in Chuck Taylor's honor, thus renaming the shoe the Converse Chuck Taylor All-Star. And for a shoe that looks as vintage as it does, it never changed. It rarely changed. Nike bought the company in 2003, and not even they made changes to it. They know not to mess with the classic. I mean, then again, Nike's been releasing Michael Jordan sneakers for the last 3 decades plus. And not much has changed except for maybe the color or the design. The color design, that is. So, why a basketball shoe for lifting? Well, if you are a strength-oriented person, or if you focus a lot on technique for most of the big multi-joint lifts, especially the squat and the deadlift, you know that you need your whole foot to do the work, because you need to be able to push down to the ground, okay? And say you're squatting or you're deadlifting and you're wearing cushy Nike sneakers or any kind of cross trainer. The sole is very cushy, all right? And that may cause some people to tip over, and that could be disastrous depending on how much weight you're squatting especially, all right? Back in the day, lifters used to do their squats and deadlifts barefoot. There's pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger doing that, and I have a picture on my blog post based on this of Ken Waller squatting barefoot. And obviously most gyms today, even the most hardcore of them, won't allow that anymore because they don't want to hear about broken toes or stuff like that. Which leads to the most important part of this shoe. This is a flat sole, okay? It is a very flat sole. There might be some compression, as Mehdi from Strong Lifts will warn you, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly, especially if you're just beginning. The other important thing about these, especially this one, is there is ankle support because of this patch that was added. All right, and that's totally important when you're doing squats. Another thing that's very important about this sneaker is because of its heel, regardless of how much it compresses or doesn't compress, is stability. Yes, this is a little bit worn out. I've had these since 2010, but they still get the job done if I needed them to. You need to be stable, which is why some people used to lift barefoot. All right. The very first time I saw anybody wearing these shoes was in Bally Total Fitness back in 2009, I believe. And I didn't have my first pair yet. And I saw a power lifter, and I asked him if he needed me to spot him. He was squatting 405 pounds. He took me up on my offer, and I noticed that he was solid. He was stable. He didn't wobble at all like me. Sometimes I even still do. It was a perfect lift, 1 rep, nice and smooth, nice and tight. No tipping over. He was flat on the ground. It was perfect. That kind of had me convinced there. I'll tell you right now. Another important thing about this is it is dirt cheap. I got my pair for maybe $50 in January 2010. Somewhere between 45 and $50. As I was getting ready to go back to the gym after a 3-4 month absence, 3 months, after nearly destroying my right rotator cuff. And doing squats again with just the bar was a revelation. Because since I was firmly on the ground, nothing to help me and nothing to keep me elevated off the ground, I was one with the ground, I saw just how weak I actually was. And that wasn't just because I was gone for 3 months. It was because I had protection the whole time. These shoes will not give you real protection. You are one with the ground, like it or not, and you do that, you will see how weak or strong you actually are. Okay? For its price, you get, they say you get what you pay for. You really do. It is worth the $50. All right? Because there's so much. It's a simple shoe, but it's so effective. I used my pair for 5 years, a little more than 5 years. It was the pair of shoes I wore when I did my first 265-pound deadlift. It was the shoe I used to help me squat more than 200 plus pounds. But more than that, like any other shoe or any other product, it can have its drawbacks. All right. Now, like I said earlier, Mehdi Hadim from Strong Lifts, and I'll leave the link for it below, warns that this will compress a bit because it's rubber. Me personally, it's not a big deal. Never really did much for me. However, if you have wide feet, see how narrow this is? This can be very uncomfortable, especially since you need to use your whole foot. With me, it doesn't bother me so much until it gets to the toes. All right? I felt it pushing back against my toes, and it was hard for me to do much. And that's one of the reasons why I switched shoes, and my squat was all the better for it. My deadlift, it didn't really make much of a difference. Having said that, there are a lot of shoes out there that most people will tell you are best for lifting. Some people will say it's the Adidas Power Lifts and whatnot. Some people will use the old discontinued Reebok CrossFit TR Lights. Me personally, if you are just starting out, this is perfect, especially when you're just learning how to use proper form. If you're a beginning trainee or an intermediate trainee, or you're not too serious about it, this shoe is absolutely perfect. It is basic, simple, yet effective. I will again leave that Strong Lifts link below. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to catch me on social media, Instagram and Tumblr. And the link to the blog post I wrote about this stuff will be in the description also. Thanks a lot.